The definition of accomplishment is something that has been achieved successfully. This is an extremely broad definition, and when thinking of accomplishment in the context of video games, the first thing many people think of is just beating the game. However, with a definition so broad and seemingly ever-growing and evolving genres of games, there is bound to be many different forms and instances in which accomplishment can be utilized. New games are released every day, from massive AAA developers to indie teams, all the way down to someone's passion project they work on in their free time. Each of these games also fits in its own genre of games, which all differ considerably, from action games to puzzle games to online multiplayer and so on. However, what connects all of these games together is the feeling of accomplishment that they bring. This feeling is almost a strict requirement for every game, as without it, games would not feel satisfying. They would be nothing to work towards or keep you occupied for more than 5 minutes. However, like I said, the feeling of accomplishment takes many forms and in every genre of games. This is what we'll be looking at today in this video. I have split this feeling of achievement into 6 different categories, and I will dive into how accomplishment is utilized in each one. By far, the most recognizable and constant form of accomplishment seen in video games is progression systems. These are the systems that provide the player with measurable progress, something that the player can see and recognize that shows them they gained something. That could be levels, a new weapon unlocked, skill trees, or discovering a new area. It could even be something as simple as adding an XP bar, as it shows that the player's actions are not in vain. While progression systems are common in almost every genre of games, they truly thrive in single-player experiences. Here, you are proving to yourself that you got stronger, and that tells you that you did something. It is easiest to think of a progression system as a series of many small goals. Getting enough XP to level up, or finding the right resources to upgrade your weapon are goals that you will achieve many times throughout a playthrough. But that does not take away the importance that this system holds. If a game just had one big final boss that you needed to beat, and that was your one singular goal, then the entire time before reaching that goal would be spent without this constant feeling of small accomplishment. There are no steps to your goal, only one massive hurdle. Think of Breath of the Wild. What if you were just supposed to run and beat Ganon, ignore the challenge runs for now? You wouldn't have any shrines to complete, no cooler weapons to find, and none of the smaller bosses to fight before Ganon. Odds are this will be a much less enjoyable journey for you. So even if these small achievements can easily be pushed aside when thinking about the more important goals, they are vital in creating that measurable progress that makes these types of games addictive and enjoyable. Another super common method for triggering accomplishment can be seen through a game's exclusive achievements and trophies. This is also the easiest to implement, as the achievements and trophies themselves are not adding anything new to the game, but instead act as a way for the player to track the things that they have done, or act as a way to pinpoint their next objective. A lot of the time, you get trophies from just beating a main story boss, or learning to upgrade a weapon, but typically there are also very niche achievements that require you to collect all of a certain item, or beat an especially challenging optional boss, or even get all of the different possible endings. It is these challenges that make getting all of the achievements in a game something you can brag or flex about to others or yourself. Most people tend to be all or nothing on these achievements. Either they want to 100% the game, completing every single achievement, or they don't care about how many they have. This is because the action of completing every trophy is visible proof to both yourself and others that you love this game and are probably very good at it. Many seek the external recognition that comes with having a platinum trophy displayed on their PlayStation, or the possible bragging rights that it carries. These achievements bring clear and predictable goals that guarantee you a sense of accomplishment. They are visible and tangible rewards that are promised if you complete the tasks they tell you to do from the start, and often bring an emotional payoff with their completion. Difficulty can be a tough concept to categorize when looking at it through the lens of accomplishment. On one hand, it actively prevents the accomplishment of your goals, but on the other, it makes those accomplishments feel greater when they are completed. I personally love difficulty, and it's one of the main reasons why I love the Souls series of games. These types of games require a lot of effort and practice to be able to persevere and complete them. With this practice and through grueling trial and error, you will enter a flow state when fighting a tough boss or doing a challenging platform level. This is when everything just works, when you recognize everything you need to do and every one of those intentions makes it through to your controller and into the game without any error. This is when it all clicks and is by far one of the greatest feelings most players can experience. It is a feeling that leads you to accomplishment and is only gained through practice and perseverance. Some games are not inherently hard, but people still choose to make them harder through the addition of challenge runs. These are created through a set of imposed rules in order to create additional challenge in certain games. I think the most common forms of these are speedruns of games and adding imposed rules agreed upon by a community, such as Nuzlocke for Pokemon. This adds a way for you to make your favorite games more enjoyable and keeps them fresh by changing up the experiences offered. Some games also host multiple difficulty levels, such as Master Mode in the Breath of the Wild DLC. By itself, most people can agree that the constant enemy health regen paired with bigger health pools and a higher chance of getting one-shot is not more fun by itself, but rather it's the goal of beating the game this way that keeps you going and makes the end result fun. Even games such as the Souls series, which are known for their difficulty, have their community create new, harder challenges, such as forcing yourself to be level 1. This goes to show that it's not about a game being too easy, which makes people create new difficult challenges, but rather something else. Next, there is Mastery, which brings its own sense of accomplishment and is normally displayed to its fullest through multiplayer games. This is because typically you don't need to master every aspect of a single-player experience to beat and enjoy the game. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, Mastery shines the brightest in competitive multiplayer titles such as Battle Royales, fighting games, or team shooters like Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. In games like these, you need to be better than everyone else to win, and so understanding each and every mechanic of a title down to even the frame data is necessary to win and play at the top levels. The clearest way that accomplishment is displayed and shown in these types of games is through ranks, and specifically your placement compared to other people. Unlike solo player games, you are not beating the game itself, as these games normally don't even have an actual ending. This creates an interesting, ever-changing sense of accomplishment that isn't as simple as getting all of the endings in your single-player game. Maybe you felt accomplished by getting to Gold 3 in Marvel Rivals, but next season you aim to reach Grandmaster. A player's feeling of accomplishment varies much more in these games as the competitive nature and human variables make it unpredictable. Mastery can also be split into two different categories. First is mechanical fluency. This refers to how good and consistently you can perform certain inputs, such as performing combos in fighting games, aiming, or knowing how to animation cancel and being able to consistently input these mechanics. The other category is mastery of a game's system. This is where knowing all of the information and interactions within a game helps you win, like figuring out an opponent's weakness or how to best farm money in Balloon's tower defense. Games that utilize mechanical fluency also always have some form of system mastery, as just clicking buttons at the right time and not knowing how to best utilize them doesn't normally lead to a win. The interesting thing is that on the other hand, there are many games that display system mastery, but mechanical fluency is not always necessary. Pokemon is a great example of this, as you don't need to master any quick reflexes or timing or really any complex input. If you know what each button does, that's all you will need to do on the mechanical end. It is the knowledge of the game and its interactions that lets you win. For example, knowing all the type weaknesses and resistances, or in chess, knowing different openings and approaches. Now, let's switch back to an almost exclusively single-player form of achievement being narrative accomplishment. This is the feeling of success and victory that you get when you reach the end of a story, when, in most cases, the world is saved and order is restored. This form of accomplishment still isn't limited to finishing a game and getting an ending necessarily. It can also be seen in smaller forms in a playthrough through aspects such as character development. Maybe there was a character you despised at the start of the game, but then they slowly redeemed themselves and by the end they became one of your favorites. This feeling is a form of accomplishment, as hoping an unlikable character stops being unlikable is quite a common goal even if not explicitly thought of. and so when it happens, we can't help but feel good. Unlike the purely mechanical or skill-based achievement seen when mastering a game, narrative accomplishment is tied to the emotional investment that the player has in the characters, the plot, and the world itself. This form of accomplishment leads to emotional payoff, as even if the story was written to end in a specific way from the start, it was you who controlled that character and made it possible to reach the hopefully good ending. These endings also often reflect the journey that you took, and is especially amplified when a game features multiple endings, as it makes the journey feel more personal. Narrative accomplishment can also be heavily tied to the understanding of the world and lore that your game features. Games like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and Hollow Knight often don't have very straightforward stories. They prefer to let the player slowly piece together the lore of its world through item descriptions, boss remembrances, and just general exploration. This cryptic way of understanding certain aspects of the game places the responsibility of understanding and uncovering the lore on the player, and since it certainly requires more effort than just watching a mandatory cutscene, it can also make the feeling of narrative accomplishment more prevalent. Lastly, we have aesthetic and moral achievement, which are similar enough to be put together but different enough to be called separate names. Moral achievement is quite similar to narrative achievement, but with one key difference: choice. This is shown in games where you as a player have the option to control a specific outcome in a game. Undertale is probably the most famous example of one of these types of games, as there are multiple decisions you will have to make in order to reach an ending. The most well-known routes are the pacifist route, where you kill no monsters and have to befriend a lot of normally tough opponents, and the complete opposite route, where you kill every single enemy and boss in each area. These two cases are obviously the extreme endings, resulting from a commitment to one specific choice, but it goes to show how your decision matters. Moral achievement can come from you making what you believe is the right choice in a game. It could be to spare someone's life, or to make sure an enemy does not hurt anyone again. There isn't necessarily a right or wrong choice in these scenarios, but this moral achievement comes from whatever you felt was the right decision in a given situation. Aesthetic achievement typically leads to a similar feeling as moral achievement, but has a different means of getting there. This type of accomplishment normally stems from creating something beautiful or meaningful to the player. Think of Minecraft. In this game, there is technically an end goal, to beat the dragon, but most would argue that this really isn't the main goal of the game. It could be for a group of players, such as speedrunners, just like how completing all the achievements could be a goal for the completionists. However, for the majority of players, Minecraft is about creating and building your ideas. Aesthetic achievement is the form of accomplishment you feel from finishing a build that you are proud of, and is often what can make this game so addicting, as this particular feeling of accomplishment is not limited to one story or a set amount of levels, but rather to however many ideas you are able to bring to life and are proud of. That covers all of the different categories that I was able to think of and split the feeling of accomplishment into. If you can, let me know what games left you feeling the most accomplished and satisfied in the comments below, as I read each one and love to see what you guys think. If you like this video and are interested in seeing more content like it, consider liking and subscribing, as I'm just getting started. With that, thank you for watching, and until next time.